All right, continuing our reading of pages 10 through 35, part 2, starting on page 23 where we left off. There were Rhode Island Reds, Dominiques, and Bantams, different types of chickens. I knew every one of them by appearance and personality. They were each individuals to me. Some I even named. Big Belle, for instance, she fell down the well. It took us 5 days to get her out, and here you can see from the perspective of the chicken looking up at the sky and the people trying to save her. We finally put some breadcrumbs in a basket and lowered it down. Darned if she didn't climb right in that basket. Must have been hungry. Then there was Lil Pullet, my favorite. She lived longer than any other bird I had. Everywhere I went around the chicken yard, Lil Pullet would be right there behind me, and it looks like he's encouraging her with some food. Springtime was my favorite time of year because it was the only season we could get baby chicks. When the hens began laying their eggs, I'd mark each one with a lightly penciled number to help keep track of its progress during the 3 weeks it took to hatch. If you look closely, you can see some numbers lightly penciled on there. The numbers were always odd, never even. I had been told never to put an even number under a setting hen. It was bad luck. And I would cheat on those sitting hens. I'd take a few from the hens that were setting on a large number of eggs and slip them under the hens that weren't. So think to yourself for a moment, what does that tell you about John Lewis? Does it tell you that he cared a lot and paid a lot of attention? Does it tell you something else? This cut down on the number of bad eggs, ones that wouldn't survive and would then rot. I also learned that a hen will continue to set as long as she has eggs underneath her. So, by slipping more eggs under my hens, I was able to keep them setting another 3 weeks. Stretching out that process is not natural, and it took a toll. So here we see feathers discarded and an upset-looking young man. So I built a makeshift incubator. It worked. And if you don't know what an incubator is, this picture shows you. It's a box that keeps the eggs warm. In this case, it's a lantern with a fire, so it's mimicking the underside of a chicken when it sits on the eggs to keep them warm so that they can hatch. I always hoped to save enough money for an actual incubator, like the $18.95 one, advertised in the Sears Roebuck catalog. We called that catalog our wish book. People would order things by mail from this catalog. They didn't live close enough to the store to go get it themselves. I fell asleep many nights dreaming about it the way other children dreamed about bicycles and doll houses. But I was never able to afford it. They didn't have a lot of money. And here, if we scroll out, we see we're back in John Lewis's office. John Lewis is back in his senator role as an adult. We're no longer in his childhood, and someone's raising their hand and he says yes. If you loved chickens so much, the little boy asks, why didn't you become a chicken farmer? And this is kind of a silly question to ask of a senator because that's a really powerful, impressive role for someone, and a chicken farmer, while an important role, is more common. So the little boy doesn't know that he's accidentally being rude. I suppose there are many reasons. Growing up, what I really wanted to be was a preacher. An uncle gave me a Bible for Christmas when I was 4, and yes, I do remember when I was 4. Important panel here. He wants to be a preacher. He got a Bible. I'll never forget my mother reading aloud to me the first words in that book, the Bible. Here comes quotes from the Bible. And they're in fancy lettering to indicate that it's a quote from a book, and also that all these curlicues and this pretty writing, it shows maybe the connection between the words and how he feels about the words. These are nicely written, pretty words, which tells you that he feels positively and maybe even poetic about the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. By the time I was 5, I could read it myself. It's pretty early to read. And one phrase struck me strongly, though I couldn't comprehend its full meaning at the time. And here's the phrase. It's written on the back of his head and his back. Behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. So I preached to my chickens just about every night. Ahem. I would get them all into the hen house and settle them on their roosts. They would sit quietly. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. They would bow their heads. They would shake their heads. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And this is a close-up, not of a person, but of a chicken. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But they would never quite say amen, because they were chickens. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I imagined that they were my congregation. And me, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I was the preacher. So here we see a picture of the kingdom of heaven, or at least the heavens, a beautiful night sky with stars and a moon, and this humble hen house with a potentially 5-year-old boy shouting at a bunch of chickens, the Bible. Suddenly, you'll notice that the background is black instead of white. Often this indicates some kind of tone change, some kind of shift in the story. And now we see a dinner plate. We were just talking about chickens that are pets. Of course, anyone can figure out the danger of making pets out of farm animals. What's missing from that plate? Especially chickens. You'll notice this is some chicken bones, chicken legs, with smells of fresh hot chicken coming off it. And this boy does not look happy to be served this chicken. He looks wary, disgusted, upset, something. You get emotionally attached to an animal destined for the dinner table, and you're asking for a broken heart. But I couldn't help it. More often than I liked, a grown hen or even a chick would die of more natural causes. For these birds, I would conduct a funeral. He's picking flowers here for the funeral. This was not child's play. I was genuinely grief-stricken, and the services were painstakingly precise. I would gather whichever of my sisters and brothers and cousins I could find, and I would deliver a eulogy. So, we know that he likes talking to crowds, and he's a young boy. He may not realize just yet the effect of his speeches on crowds. So a eulogy is a speech. It is a funeral speech to honor the dead person and give your respects. So here his audience is pictured with their hands on their chins, slumped over, looking the other way. These people do not seem excited by his long-winded eulogy about a dead chicken. My parents would watch the newest tiny coffin join the neat row of small dirt-mounded graves. Here's his parents, and they look worried and wonder what kind of son they had. This is an unusual trait in a boy. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? They didn't know yet. I even went through a period of performing baptisms. And in case you don't know, a baptism is a religious ceremony, usually for the Christian faith, in which a young person or someone new to the faith is usually dunked underwater, sometimes water just sprinkled on their head, and it symbolizes their devotion to God and their salvation, which means that they can go to heaven. I was truly intent on saving the little birds' souls by dunking them in water. On one occasion, I was too intense, and you see the intensity drawn in lines coming out from the bucket he's got his hands thrust in. I guess I misjudged the time. This chicken does not look either not alive or not healthy. I was shocked, absolutely terrified. I had taken one of my innocent babies and actually killed it. I didn't know what to do. And here the graphic novel pans out to this wide open sky, and in this case there's an emotional meaning behind that wide open sky, with the boy on the ground kneeling, backlit in the foreground. It might indicate confusion, aloneness, grief, guilt. In my panic, I hoped somehow the sun's heat might dry its feathers and maybe revive it. Dead chicken, sun. Boy crying. Dead chicken. Live chicken, chicken with its eyes open. Chicken squawking loudly. Incredibly, it did. I never felt more guilty than I did that day, and here we see the chicken growing up, going about its business as chickens do. All these aspects of my chicken play tickled my parents at first, but their amusement vanished as I began seriously protesting their own treatment of the birds. From time to time, they would have no cash to pay the Rolling Stone man for some sorely needed sugar or flour, so they would offer a bird in barter instead. One of my chickens. So the picture is of them passing the chicken off to someone else. I'd cry, refuse to speak to them for the rest of the day, even skip that evening's meal. So that's where his protesting begins. Worse, though, was watching my mother or father kill one of the chickens for a special Sunday dinner. And you see here someone chasing after a chicken running away, and these two hands are drawn with the muscles and tendons sticking out, looking kind of monstrous and angry. He does not like the actions of his parents in this situation, so he's drawing their hands as looking menacing. They would either break its neck with their hands, spinning it around until the bones snapped, or simply chop the head off. They would then drain the blood from its body and dip it in boiling water, scalding it to loosen its feathers for plucking. I was nowhere to be seen at those family meals. Back in the office, two little boys on January 20, 2009 ask, "So you stopped raising chickens because it was too hard to see them be killed?" No, the death of those chickens was just part of life. But eventually I began spending more time doing schoolwork, studying, and my eyes began opening to the world around me. Why did you need to study more? Did you fail tests? Innocent yet somewhat rude question. Mother goes, "Jacob, shh." I did okay. I wasn't the best. What? But school was important to me, and it was ultimately the reason I got involved in the civil rights movement. And that brings us to page 36. Thank you for watching.